If you're selling high ticket products or services and you're relying on sales calls to convince people to buy, you're starting the process way too late. Most high ticket sellers think that success comes down to better closing techniques, handling objections like a pro, or spending more on lead generation to find the right prospects. I used to think the same thing when I was struggling to consistently close $5,000 plus script writing projects. But what if I told you that every high ticket sale actually happens in the prospect's mind long before they ever get on a call with you? And that the entrepreneurs consistently selling 100K plus products know how to trigger that buying decision through strategic psychology in their content, not their sales skills. In this video, I'm going to break down the exact three-part psychological framework that high ticket sellers use to make prospects pre-sell themselves. So by the time they get on a call, they're not asking, should I buy? They're asking, how do we get started? But before we get into this, let me be crystal clear about who this is for. I'm talking to established entrepreneurs who have proven high ticket offers, who want predictable ways to fill their calendars without depending entirely on expensive lead generation or your setter's closing skills. Maybe you're great at what they do, but your sales process feels like you're constantly convincing people of your value, or maybe you're getting leads, but they're price shopping instead of seeking you out specifically. So if you're just starting out, if you're still figuring out your offer, or if you don't have at least a $1,000 program or service, this probably isn't going to be relevant to your situation right now. But if you're an established entrepreneur who wants to build a system where high quality prospects seek you out and arrive pre-sold on your value, then you're exactly who needs to hear this. Here's what I've discovered working with high-ticket coaches, consultants, and service providers. Most successful entrepreneurs face a critical problem that keeps them trapped in expensive, time-consuming sales processes. Let me give you a perfect example from my own business. When I first started selling script writing services, I was stuck in what I call the convincing cycle. I'd get on calls with prospects and spend 45 minutes explaining why they needed better scripts, how psychology works in copywriting, and why my approach was different. Even when I did close deals, it felt like I was pushing uphill. Prospects would ask for discounts, compare me to cheaper alternatives, or take weeks to make decisions. I was making sales, but I was working way too hard for each one. Then I had a client, Matt Parr, who runs multiple six-figure YouTube businesses, who taught me something that changed everything. Matt told me, Haris, when prospects come to me through my organic content, they're not price shopping. They already know I'm the expert. The sales conversation is just about logistics. That's when I realized the problem. I was trying to build authority and credibility during the sales calls instead of before them. High-ticket psychology works completely differently. These buyers don't want to be convinced. They want to find the person who can solve their problem, and that decision happens long before they ever speak to you. Now, this brings me to point one. The first psychological principle that separates high-ticket sellers is what I call pre-sale psychology. High-ticket buyers make purchase decisions before sales call ever happen. Your job isn't to convince them during a call, it's to trigger that decision beforehand through strategic content. Here's exactly how this worked for me. Instead of creating content that taught people how to write scripts themselves, I created content that showed them why most scripts fail psychologically and what that cost them in lost revenue. When prospects found this content and then got on calls with me, they'd say things like, I watched your videos and realized I've been making these exact same mistakes. I need you to handle this for me. The sale happened before the call started. This works because high-ticket buyers have a completely different psychology than low-ticket buyers. They're not looking for the cheapest option, they're looking for certainty. When your content demonstrates the complexity of their problem and the expertise required to solve it, you create psychological certainty that they need a specialist. But triggering pre-sale psychology is only part of the equation. If you don't combine it with this next principle, you'll attract people who understand they need help but don't see you as the person to provide it. The second psychological principle is called the authority positioning effect. High-ticket buyers don't just buy products or services, they buy into positional authority. They want to work with the person in your space, not just another person who does what you do. Let me show you exactly what this looks like with real numbers. I have 360 YouTube subscribers. Most people would look at that and think that my organic strategy isn't working, or in more crude words, it sucks. But this tiny channel has generated over $40,000 from a single client, plus 5 other clients that found me through this YouTube channel. Here's why. Every piece of content positions me as the scriptwriter who understands sales psychology, not just another random scriptwriter. When prospects find my content, they're not comparing me to other scriptwriters. They see me as the category leader. My client, Matt Park, who ironically is sitting right in front of me, I'm at the team below right now. But my client, Matt Parr, told me that after our webinar generated $50,000 in a single day, he said, Haris, we're scaling this 2x. Get ready. That's authority positioning at work. This is the difference between being a commodity and being in a category of one. When you position yourself as the authority through strategic content, prospects stop asking how much do you charge, and they start asking how do we work together? Because in their mind, there's only one logical choice: you. Authority positioning creates premium demand, but there's one more psychological trigger that determines whether someone becomes a qualified prospect or just another follower who never buys anything. Which brings me to the third point. The third psychological principle is called qualification magnets. Most entrepreneurs create content that attracts everyone, then try to qualify people later. But high-ticket psychology works the opposite way. You want your content itself to attract only qualified prospects and repel everyone else. Here's exactly how this works in practice. In my scripts, I don't only teach concepts. I specifically speak to people who are ready for high-ticket solutions. I'll say things like, if you're already making six figures but you know your scripts are leaving money on the table, this is for you. But if you're still trying to figure out your basic business model, bookmark this and come back later. What happens is, qualified prospects think, yes, that's exactly me, while unqualified prospects self-select app. So the people who reach out are already pre-qualified and ready to invest. My client Warner had a dead email list of 3,600 people. We created a sequence that spoke specifically to established entrepreneurs who felt stuck. That sequence generated $35,000 in 7 days. 10 emails. Because it attracted only people ready to buy. This psychological pre-qualification is crucial because high-ticket sales aren't about convincing people to buy. They're not about trying to convince them of your value. They are actually about identifying people who are already ready to buy and making it easy for them to choose you. When your content does the qualifying work up front, your sales conversations become consultations about implementation. That's a lot of big fancy words, but I basically mean that they're not battles that you need to fight to overcome objections. These three psychological principles work together to create what I call the high ticket magnet effect. But there's something that most entrepreneurs get completely wrong when they try to implement this. So here's what I need to be completely honest with you about. Everything I've shared works incredibly well. The psychology is proven, the strategy is sound, but there's a massive gap between understanding these principles and actually implementing them effectively. Most entrepreneurs try to create this psychological positioning themselves and end up with content that actually hurts their authority instead of building it. Why? Because creating content that triggers pre-sale psychology, builds authority, and magnetically attracts qualified prospects requires understanding conversion psychology, positioning strategy, and advanced copywriting, all woven together seamlessly. You can be the best coach, consultant, or service provider in the world, but if your content doesn't psychologically position you correctly, you will keep struggling with the same sales challenges. Here's the timeline when it's done right. Days 1 through 30, strategic content positioning begins building authority and attracting qualified prospects. Days 31 to 60, prospects start recognizing you as the expert in your space. Days 61 to 90, that's the third month, high quality leads start reaching out pre-sold on working with you. But here's what most successful entrepreneurs realize. This isn't something you learn on top of running your business. It's something you systemize so you can focus on serving clients and closing deals. So remember, high-ticket sales happen in the mind before they happen on the call. Use pre-sale psychology to trigger buying decisions early. Position yourself as the authority in your space and create content that magnetically attracts only qualified prospects. Master these three psychological principles and you will stop chasing prospects and start having them seek you out. You'll stop competing on price and start commanding premium fees. And most importantly, you will stop spending your time convincing people to buy and start spending it serving clients who already want to work with you. So if you're serious about implementing high ticket psychology and you want to see exactly how we could build the system for your specific business, I do a limited number of strategy sessions each month where I analyze your current positioning and show you precisely how to implement these psychological triggers. Now, this isn't for everyone. I only work with established entrepreneurs who have proven high ticket offers and are serious about systematic growth. But if that's you and you want to see how we could build a system that has prospects seeking you out, pre-sold on your value, book a 15-minute strategy session below. I'll analyze your specific situation and show you exactly what this would look like for your business. The session is free, but spots are limited because I personally review every strategy. The entrepreneurs who master the psychology don't only sell more, they build something bigger. They build authority that can't be disrupted. They build positioning that makes them the obvious choice. They build freedom. The link is below if you're ready for that conversation. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.